Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about something that is very, very important to me. And that is, well, you wouldn't think so with the YouTube thing, right? The only reason why I'm doing this is because it's so important to me, right? Normally, my whole life, I've never shown my picture anywhere. Maybe people are gonna say, "Hey, that's a good thing. You should you should follow that rule more often." No, but I've never shown my picture, and I don't have social media. I don't do anything like that. I haven't because it's just I knew how bad it could be, right? And we're going to be talking about today about not just client-side scanning, but we're going to be talking about the infrastructure that's already in place that support client-side scanning. We're going to be talking about the legal part of it that ties it, that gives it life, basically, that they're kind of pushing down the line, right? And then finally, one of the last things we're going to talk about is how we're seeing in the world today, the little inklings of this thing, and also how we're getting locked in, right? It's not enough to just scan every single damn thing that we do, but they need to lock us in, right? That's the key thing. So we're gonna look at that, and then finally, after I tell you how screwed up everything is, now we're gonna take a look at what can we do, right? What can we do to kind of you know try to escape this piece of shit that's going on, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, we're gonna get started. We need to take a look first at probably one of the bigger examples of this. What happened in China, right? So, uh, what was it in the 2000s or so? China started putting out cameras all over the place for like traffic and help prevent crime and whatnot, right? And then as time went on, they started to integrate this stuff with new technologies that were coming out, and it helped them get a better handle on their citizens. And then they started implementing and integrating that with AI and databases and everything else. And then they were really screwed, right? The people were screwed, but you got to understand that it's China's not the US, right? So although there might be some things that you don't like over there, I've gone to China a couple times, and you got to know that China's not the US. So they even have a term for a lot of stuff. It's like "没办法," right? Means, hey, ain't shit you can do about it. So nothing you can do about it, right? It really sucks, but it's just how things are. In the US though, we're a little bit more sneaky the way our governments do it. They do it behind our back. Like they crawl around behind us as we're taking our shower so they can slip it in. You know what I mean? Like when we're not looking. Uh, so that's how the U.S. does it, at least. I don't know about everywhere else in the world. The EU's been a little crazy with how they've been doing things, but I know that's how the U.S. has always done it. But the thing you might not know is that if we look at this article by the AP, U.S. companies help bring the predictive policing to China. And in that technology, it sucks in and analyzes data to prevent crime, protests, and terror. So basically, it gets access to their information: text, calls, payments, flights, video, DNA swabs, mail deliveries, the internet, and even water and power use to unearth individuals that are deemed suspicious to predict their behavior. So, sound familiar? All the stuff I've been hearing with Palantir and all this kind of crazy stuff going on. It should sound pretty familiar to you. Okay, um, but they also allow Chinese police to threaten friends and family, and preemptively detain people for crimes they have not even committed. So I'm not even going to talk on that one, but I don't know. There's some questionable stuff going on, right? You can draw whatever parallels you want to draw. Okay. So we have that. So we know that Silicon Valley has been complicit in this type of surveillance state. It's good business, right? It's good business if everyone has to they can provide that technology to a country to for whatever, and they can get away with it because it's technically legal in their country. Then of course it's good business for them, so they're going to do it. The corporations have no morals. So that's what happened in the past. So let's look at what's happening here in the US. What we need to look at here in 2021, Apple, they came out with a plan to scan photos as they were uploaded to iCloud. You guys probably heard of this. You might, hopefully you did. Matching them against a database of known questionable images, right? I can't say the word because, we know how that goes. If a match was detected, the system would flag the content and potentially report it. It could be a lot of different things, right? What if you had a picture of Anya? Like, depending on the rules, it could be seen as something questionable, right? If you had, you know, hopefully you're not gonna upload pictures of like Hirogashi or something like that, but you know what I mean, right? Like if you have pictures of like Anya or something innocent, they could see it as like, hey, this guy's got some weird pictures on his phone. They might give you some trouble there too. You never know, right? Apple tried this stuff. People went crazy, right? Big security experts went crazy about it. The users went crazy about it, and they backed off. They said, "Hey, we're just kidding. Chill, bro. We're just kidding, right? Just can't you take a joke? Can't you take a prank? Like how those people are. Basically, this is their way of seeing what they can get away with, right? So they turned it all off, and they told people, when was it? Like I think it was 2023. They had the backlash in 2021. They shifted strategy. They started doing end-to-end encryption across iCloud devices, and then 2023 it announced it abandoned development of the iCloud questionable image detection tool. So good job on you, iPhone people. That's awesome. But here's the thing. Something that they forgot to tell you. They left that technology in your phone. Okay? So what does that mean? Apple can be strong armed by the people to not implement that technology, right? The client side scanning. But what if a legal mandate comes down? Well, the technology is already there, so why not just flip the switch and turn that on, or repurpose it, or enhance it so that it's scanning, other stuff too. So that infrastructure is already there. So here's the parts that are there. The secure enclave store rules, keys, and hashes securely, so you can't mess with it, you can't tamper with it. Has a neural engine for fast private scanning, so it scans and categorizes all your photos and whatnot on the device. So Apple doesn't even have to worry about that. It does that itself. And then iOS has update mechanisms to change what's scanned. Right? Infrastructure still exists, but it's not on right now. So here's the thing: you might think, "Hey, I'm on an Android. I don't have to worry about that crap, right?" Android is the land of the free, right? We can do whatever we want here. Well, no. You think that, but that's not the case. The Pixel phones now have Titan M secure core chips on all Pixel devices, very similar to the Secure Enclave. The Google Play services runs everywhere, constantly updating, always connected, and also has on-device ML via tensor cores and Android system APIs. So Google Photos already does on-device classification, like faces, or like you can tell who you are. What's your family. Locations before sync. Safety Net Play Integrity already checks your device for modifications. So if mandated, Google already has what it needs to do client-side scanning. It can check hashes, keywords, mic data, like whatever. So you say the wrong thing, and you're up shit creek, right? You're on that watch list. Now, do we do? So, when it comes to Microsoft, we don't even need to talk about Microsoft. Come on. As long as if you haven't been living under a rock, Microsoft has Windows Recall. Windows Recall basically takes snapshots of your screen every couple seconds. I think it's like 5 seconds or something like that, and it stores it in BitLocker, right? So technically, in a secure environment until until you're a victim of social engineering or Microsoft support calling. We need to. There's been an error with your BitLocker. We need you to let us remote into your area and get this code for us, please. You know, and then get into your BitLocker and either blackmail the shit out of you, or maybe a three-letter agency calls them. Hey, Microsoft. Maybe you were red flagged and you're on a watch list now because you talked about whatever, right? Maybe you talked about, depending on who's in charge, maybe you talked about AOC, or maybe you talked about JD Vance. It doesn't matter. Whoever's in charge, or maybe you talked about, like Bernie, whatever, right? But you go on, you get flagged. Some three-letter agency contacts Microsoft, says, "Hey, we got someone who's a potential terrorist or whatever they want to say. He's on our watch list. We need to get access to his recall data." Well, what do you think Microsoft's going to do? Say, "Oh no, 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 we can't. We have strict privacy laws here." No, they're gonna hand that crap over. They have Windows recall, right? You got TPM, which is on like motherboards right now. You have Pluton chips now, which basically the TPM's on the chip. But basically, it's secure enclave for key storage and AI model execution. And Teams, right? F Teams, right? Like Teams, Office 365, and OneDrive already funnel user activity through Microsoft Cloud Services. So I always tell my students about this. Like if some of them are trying to get into the workspace, I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like don't be saying stupid shit on Teams, right? Don't talk about your boss on Teams. Don't do anything that's going to be, just consider Teams as a surveillance thing here. So, already in use. Recall is basically client-side scanning for everything you've ever done in your PC. Let that sink in. That's everything. Everything you've ever done. It doesn't matter if you're 16 and you're downloading ROMs off of an illegal website, or if you're a 79-year-old guy just scanning, going through the internet and you accidentally click on a link, or in YouTube's case, you accidentally click on a profile picture and it takes you to some weird Discord, and you know where I'm going with that. But you could set off flags all over the place doing different things, and it starts to create this dossier on you. You create it on yourself, actually, because you opt into using these services. This is why privacy is so important, and why it's so important that you guys see that this stuff is in place. All the infrastructure exists already. All they got to do is put in those rules, flip a switch, and you're donezo, right? You're done. So, it's just disgusting. Like, look at this. So all three companies too, they've already shown that they're willing to compromise your privacy and security depending on the jurisdiction. So Apple in China, also complying with EU data laws, and Microsoft building backdoors for enterprises and governments. So it's pretty jacked up, right? So everything's there. Okay? So now we're going to get into the next part here. Okay, so the next part that we're going to be talking about is the different laws that are coming down the pipe. Because now we have the infrastructure that, just so you know, one of the people who really talked about this very well was Rob Braxman, right? Some people don't like Rob Braxman because they think they have their reservations about him, right? But you cannot deny that this guy knows what he's talking about. You can double check everything that he says, and it's factual for as far as what I've checked so far. So if you go to his videos called "Kill Privacy Forever," they will mandate an app to watch you, client-side scanning. He has about 334 views, 334,000 views. Before he only had about 200 to 250, but still, there should be way more views on this, because this is something that's affecting you and me every day. So he goes over just a little bit of the legal stuff, and he also goes over the infrastructure of what we talked about here. And He's very passionate about what he's talking about. So I recommend you check out that video. I'll put a link to it in the description below. Um, but the next person that talked about stuff was Naomi Brockwell, right? So Naomi Brockwell, she was an actress, and she ended up getting into security, and she has her own. She's the president of her own security foundation or whatnot, and her videos like are really good. Like sometimes some of my students, I've introduced them to her, and my students are usually a lot of older folks, and they love her content. Like the people I've shown her to. As she says in her video, this is the moment the internet changed forever. You can find her on Naomi Brockwell TV. Uh, there is a recent wave of mandatory age verification and ID checks on major platforms like Spotify, Reddit, and YouTube. Now, I'm not sure if that's only on in the EU. I don't use Spotify because I think it's garbage. If I use Reddit, I use it as like I'm faceless. You know, what I mean, I basically don't have an account there. We're seeing this on YouTube, right? Like where if you don't, like when I upload a video, it says, "Oh, do you want to upload a video of yourself so that we can tell who you are? Do you want to upload your government issued ID?" Hell no. You know, I'm not gonna upload my ID. Or do you want us just to go by your start building a history on you so we can see if you're an adult or not? I just went with that one. It would take me a hell of a long time to get monetized anyway. But so I'm just going with that. That's fine. Whatever. But yeah, we're seeing on YouTube too. The measures that we're seeing with the age verification and all this other stuff, it's they're not isolated, right? It's a global government push that signals a new age of surveillance on the internet. So it's not just like annoying like UI or UX, right? It's a fundamental shift from openness to surveillance. Let's take a look at some of these laws. So the UK Online Safety Act. So the UK Online Safety Act requires strict age verification and ID checks, now required for almost any platform with harmful content. Harmful content, right? Like what is harmful content? Anything they feel is harmful, right? Who are they? You know, that's the big question, right? It's going to be some committee of people who shouldn't be making these decisions, deciding what you can and can't watch, you know, what you can see and not see, and what you can hear and what you can't hear, unless you identify yourself and become part of a list of people who've looked at this thing. And that's bullshit. What do we need to provide them with in order to prove that we are of age? Well, I got that for you here at least. This is from ofcom.org.uk. So if you're in the UK, you guys are probably already familiar with this stuff. But facial age estimation. So if you show your face in a video or a photo, the technology analyzes it to estimate your age. So open banking. You give permission for the age check service to securely access information from your bank about whether you're over 18. The age check service then confirms this with the site or app. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not giving my bank information to anyone, right? Unless it's like HTTPS and I'm not sharing that, like it's just for a transaction. It's not going to be so they can, create this profile of me. Screw that crap. I don't know about you guys. I hope you guys don't do that either. Digital identity services. These include digital identity wallets, which can securely store and share information which proves that your prove your age in a digital format. Credit card age checks. You provide your credit card details, and a payment processor checks if the card is valid, as you must be over 18 to obtain a credit card, and this shows that you're over 18. No, that's not happening. That's not happening with me. Email-based age estimation. Here's this is another good one. You provide your email address, and the technology analyzes other online services where it has been used, such as banking or utility providers, to estimate your age. I'm not giving my email address. No way. Mobile network operator age checks. You give your permission for an age check service to confirm whether or not your mobile phone number has age filters applied to it. If there are no restrictions, it confirms you're over 18. Here's another dumb one. So, photo ID matching. This is similar to a check when you show a document. For example, you upload an image of a document that shows your face and age and an image of yourself at the same time. These are compared to confirm if the document is yours. All of these methods are very invasive, right? They're very invasive. It's all to save the children. We need to save the children. It's a bunch of bullshit. It's, what it's about. It's to control you. And it's to control your children when they grow up. So they can just be slaves, right? And under a little leash that they can yank like a choke collar. So how do I know my information is going to be kept private? Well, trust me, bro, right? Like, strong age checks are done effectively, safely, and in a way that protects your privacy. Basically, trust me, bro. Data protection in the UK is regulated and enforced by the Information Commissioner's Office. Yeah. We've seen people who are parts of these offices. They don't know shit about technology most of the time. That's what they're dealing with there, right? You're thinking, well, I'm in the US. I don't have anything to worry about. Yeah, you're delusional if you think that. There are a lot of things coming on online here. There's another one from internetsociety.org. They also talk about the act does not specifically mention encryption in relation to content sent between individual users, but the demands in it would undermine this by default. The providers have to guarantee that even if communications are encrypted, either they or law enforcement will be able to get access to it. It also demands that providers are able to reliably verify or estimate a user's age. The law requires that they use accredited technologies to do so, which the UK government itself has acknowledged do not exist. Basically, end-to-end encryption, they see privacy as breaking the law, right? It should not be against the law. It's a human right. You know what I mean? It's just stupid. So we got to look at how we got here, right? Gradual normalization, phone verification, then, biometrics, and then governments apply quiet pressure rather than overt legislation because people are going to probably vote against this stuff, right? So they do something called jawboning, which Naomi Brockwell talks about in her video, where they apply quiet pressure to these companies. And the companies comply because they don't want to, like we said, they don't want to deal with liability or any kind of negative recourse from governments, right? They want to make stacks of cash. They solely condition users to accept these changes. By the time the laws arrive, which they're coming, pushback is minimal. The shift is systemic, not sudden. Years of groundwork before it's finally converged. Then we got shit like know your customer, right? Know your customer pipelines are high risk. They collect sensitive personal data. Think about this. I don't know if you guys remember, but the IRS was hacked a while back, and they stole a bunch of information about people from the IRS. And what you'll find is that older systems, like at banks, like big banks, and I don't know about nowadays, but when I worked in banks in IT, their stuff's old because it's too expensive to update those systems, right? There's just so much spaghetti crap tied together that they don't want to deal with that, right? It'd either be super expensive or they're afraid everything's going to break. So they don't want to screw with it. And I would assume it's the same for the government. Their systems are so old and jacked up that I bet you your data probably isn't as protected as you would think it would be. Then we have newer companies too, though. It's not just old companies. Like, what is it, the T app, where like 72,000 images, including IDs and home addresses, leaked. They were horrible people on that app. It seems like from what I gathered, but still, that's no one deserves there to be doxxed. And companies, like for instance, if I give my ID to YouTube, they promise that they're gonna safely delete the image once they confirm that I'm of age, right? But do you trust them? Do you really think they're doing this? I don't know about you, but I don't trust anybody. Like, why would I trust a company? The main thing here is that anonymity is now treated as a threat. Um, Participation requires permission. Free exchange of information is gated, and centralized platforms become easy targets for government coercion and censorship. So Facebook's, um, WhatsApp. If it's centralized, the government can put pressure on it. So hopefully, by us saying that, you can kind of see one way you can kind of help fight against this. But surveillance masquerades as protection. It always does. Protect the children. We're keeping you safe from hackers. Yeah, they don't give a shit about you or hackers. They just care about controlling you. In reality, it's exposure, not safety. The more information you send out there, the more chance there is for your stuff to get lost in the void, in the dark web, on a data in a data web warehouser's database, and sold to the highest bidder. Right? There's more of these things though. Let me show you this here together. Yeah, SB20. So Texas recently released SB20 for the SB20 statute. So basically, Texas creates a state jail felony if someone knowingly possesses, accesses with the intent to view or promotes obscene visual material containing a depiction that appears to be of a child younger than 18 years of age. For SB20, statutes define obscene as the average person. What the hell is the average person? Applying contemporary community standards would find that taken as a whole appeals to the prurient interest in sex, contains patently offensive representations or descriptions of sexual acts, and taken as a whole lacks serious literary, artistic, political, and scientific value, among other criteria. Like, what the fuck? Like, seriously, like, this is just totally stupid. It's totally broad. The average person. Who defines what the average person is, right? And it's just there's just so much stupid crap. Uh, right here they say there's concerns about the way the law is written as it could impact other forms of media. The language of the bill still reads that someone has violated SB 20 regardless of whether the depiction was an image of an actual child, a cartoon, an animation, or an image created using an artificial intelligence application or other computer software. With AI stuff, I kind of saw this coming, um, because there's some AI apps that are a little, you know, but to do a blanket statement like this affects cartoon and animations. So this could totally affect Japan in a major way, right? So here's a quote. When I first heard it was against AI generating inappropriate stuff like that, by all means, it doesn't need to do that. But yeah, if it's going to affect things that had no intention in any way whatsoever, wait, what? It's going to affect things that had no intention in that way whatsoever. So, this is the manager of Kaboom Comics in West Laco. Comics, people are worried about this, because there. I don't know if you guys read comics, but there's a lot of comics like I don't know if Grant Morrison had stuff like that, but there's a lot of people who were pretty. There's some edgy stuff in comics, but it's like done in an adult way. Like usually. Yeah, you have things like what is it, Zombie Trap or something like that. But even that's just like kind of comical, right? But you never know. Are they going to ban stuff like that? Are they going to start arresting people for having that kind of content if you're in Texas? And will laws like this start spreading across the U.S.? So I don't know. It's just it's a slippery slope, right? And I think we're already sliding down, and no one's saying a damn thing. So if people want to take this video and make it better, I mean, feel free, do that. But spread the word and get this out. So this is just another thing here, right? There's EU chat control. That's also asking for client-side scanning to be done away with, right? So this one's about chat control here. So this proposal with EU's chat control would create detection orders that allow for messages, files, and photos from hundreds of millions of users across the world to be compared to government databases of, different images. At some points during the debate, EU officials even suggested using AI to scan text conversations and predict who would engage in child abuse. That's one of the reasons why some opponents have labeled the proposal chat control. So, like, does that mean if you watch The Professional, remember with Leon and Matilda, like that was pretty, if you have the Professional at home, are you gonna be, on the watch list now? Like, there's so much stuff here. They always say, oh, it's save the children, save the children. It has nothing to do about children. It has to do about control. These people are sons of bitches and they're getting away with it every day. So there's more. There's more things. There's Digital Services Act, DSA. So we have the Digital Services Act. That's another one that you guys want to keep your eyes on. The Swiss surveillance laws. Now the Swiss surveillance laws is very interesting. Even Proton, if you guys are familiar with VPNs and secure email, well, Proton VPN is typically one of the better VPNs. Most VPNs out there are garbage. NIM's pretty interesting, but Proton is really good. I had Proton for a while. I actually paid for it, um, because I believed in their whole mission thing. And not sponsored, by the way. I only have 5 videos. Of course, I'm not sponsored, but yeah, Proton. They it's zero logs and all this other stuff, and they've been tested and they get independently audited. Does that mean I trust them? No, but it does mean that I trust them more than any other VPN provider right now. You never trust anyone because anyone could buy that company and everything changes, right? Just like what we saw happen with PIA. It used to be okay before and someone bought it and things changed, right? But anyway, so because of the Swiss privacy laws, Proton's saying that they're going to move their offices. They're going to move out of Switzerland and go somewhere else where they can, where they have better privacy laws. And so good on them, right? But it just sucks that it's getting to this point where even Switzerland is being part of this global push towards surveillance. Kind of sucks. Now we know. First part, infrastructure. Second part, legislation. When the legislation is pushed pushed enough, we're coming to the third part now. And the third part is going to be all about what comes next. Okay, so the next part here is now what's happening, right? So it's really hard to for me because like the thing I loved about Androids was that the freedom, right? It's exactly what it should be. You buy the phone, you learn how it works, you you install what you want, you run what you want. That's just the way it should be, right? If you screw up, then you learn from it and you move on. There should be some default security stuff in there, default privacy stuff in there. But now Google, as you probably have heard, they've blocked the ability for users to install apps from like a random GitHub or APKs from a random GitHub or something. So if you were trying to install like some APK from somewhere, like maybe you have let me try to think of one that is okay to say here. But if you were trying to install something, that developer would have to be a registered developer on Google's list of registered developers, and Google would have to accept them, or else you can't even install their stuff. It really sucks. So they're locking down Android. If it comes down to that point where you can't do shit on your Android anymore, Why not just get an iPhone then, right? So they're doing that. They're locking you in. They're preventing you from installing things. So like in the past, like I, like maybe people had like things like it doesn't exist anymore, but like maybe an anime app that you found on GitHub, or you found like a something that you could use to watch videos or something on your phone. Um, I'm not gonna say any apps or anything like that because that's a big no-no, right? It's harmful and dangerous. I don't want to harm you, and I don't want to endanger you. So Google's blocking all that, but that's not the end of it. So, well, we can see here. Let me just show you real fast. So you can see, even Ars Technica and a bunch of other people. I think you guys have seen all this, so I don't really need to beat a dead horse. But if an app that you love, like I have a couple that I love, if they're not a registered developer, um, then with Google, then you can install it on your phone, and that's going to be taking place. It should be rolling across the in the U.S. at about 2027, I think they said. So enjoy what you have now because Google's going to be effing you in the A. So yeah, so that's pretty disappointing, right? Luckily, that's as bad as it gets, right? Well, no. Then Google decided, in their infinite wisdom, that they're going to hide the device trees from ROM developers. So, um, so we have people like who are doing good work, like Graphene OS, which I'm gonna swap to, probably at the end of 2026, most likely, or mid 2026, around there. It makes it way harder for them to even build stuff, and I think that's the intent. They want to make it so damn hard that it's almost not it's not reasonable for people to even for them to even continue. They probably want them to just quit. So they're hiding device trees. But yeah, so basically, there's something with their updates too that's happening with Google and their security updates, which is according to Graphene a big no-no. So on their Twitter, or it might be on Graphene's site. But anyway, so they're trying to lock you in. They're trying to lock you in like caged, beasts. Make it so that their way is the only way for you. Well, I'll tell you, I'm going to fight against that as long as I possibly can. Okay? Hopefully you guys do too. So what's our steps forward? So here are our reasonable steps forward. You know, say something, make a video, do something like what I'm doing. That spurred me to do this. Am I like I'm a passionate person when it comes to this stuff. I think you can tell that by now, right? But I think a lot of you are passionate too. If you're even looking at this for 10 seconds, you are passionate about this enough to look at it. Do something. Say something. Inform people. Spread the message. Let them know what's happening. Let them know that the internet that they knew is going away because we're letting it happen. Don't use centralized services anymore. Don't give them your money. Use something like Mastodon. Use something like the one that's interesting is I don't know how that's going to work, but BitChat supposed to be decentralized, works on Bluetooth mesh. That might be something that's interesting. Move away from centralized services. Use things like IPFS. If you hear things too, like they say, "Oh, Blue Sky is decentralized." Well, not really. It's still, all the little servers are still controlled by one entity, right? Mastodon has tons of different, places out there, and they have their own rules, their own little stuff going on. So that's a little bit more decentralized than something like Blue Sky. Then you have things like Matrix. You have things like what's the other one? X something. I forgot what it was called. Not X. Definitely not X. But there's some other ones out there. There's a lot of decentralized services. Try moving towards those. Give them a shot. You might like them. You know, I don't know. That's all I can really say about this. I really hope that this shows you how all these things are tied together. Where it's going now to locking us the hell down. They're finishing up the second portion, which is getting all the legislation through so they can flip the switch. Because all the infrastructure already exists, and the last part is just getting us to locked in, locked away. We have the option of Google, we have the option of Microsoft, and we have the option of whatever it is, Apple, right? All those are, you know, they're compliant with the government. They do whatever the government says. They're willing to surveil you. All this stuff. Now, you can use Linux, but here's the main disclaimer with Linux. I love Linux. Okay, I absolutely love Linux. Linux is the way, like the whole philosophy behind Linux, and that's the type of way that the internet should be, right? Free open source software, like where people can, like review others' code. We can see what's going on. There's full transparency with a lot of stuff. Um, Anyone can contribute. I've learned that Linux is a paradise. Like it's like a digital paradise once you get used to it. But at least for me, and even my wife gets tempted, to come back now and again. But she can't because she has like some anti-cheat games that don't work. But Linux is a beautiful thing. Okay, if you're like a lover of collective shout, if you're a believer in surveillance and all this other bullshit, then stay the fuck away from Linux. Right? Just go play in Microsoft forever. You know, Mm, go do a circle jerk in Microsoft's ecosystem. But like, if you are really looking to escape, you're willing to put in the time to at least learn the basics of Linux. You don't need to learn everything. I don't know a lot of stuff still. But if you're willing to put in the time, man, give it a shot. Give it a real shot. And you know, it's like it's just amazing. And I've gone and each flavor is different. So I would say that's another way that you can fight against this, right? Last way, Graphene OS. Graphene is another way. Now, when it comes to the hardware part of Google's bullshit, are they going to make it at some point to where it scans your device no matter what OS you have on it? You know, I don't know. And if we look at the things that are going on with, I think it was Facebook, in January. They, I think it was Facebook. They started banning anyone that was talking about Linux. And not until the end of January did they come out with a statement. After there was backlash saying it was malware and harmful or dangerous content talking about Linux. In towards the beginning of February, they came out with a statement. Oh, we're trying some automated moderation, and it's expected that some stuff is going to get caught up in there. If that was the case, they would have fixed that right away, or it wouldn't have taken maybe a week at the most, not like almost like 3 weeks or whatever it was, right? They're trying to find out what they can get away with, and I think Linux is a big vulnerability to them because of its free um, belief and structure, right? Like it's an open environment, and it's beautiful. Um, and honestly, I'm terrified. Like, I hope Linus Torvalds like lives forever, right? Like, like in Chinese they say like Wang Sui, Wang Sui, right? Like that means like I hope you live like like a really long time, like 1,000 years or something like that. Well, I hope that guy lives forever because if something happens to that guy, man, I'm so afraid of what's gonna happen to Linux. Is there anyone that can carry that torch? I don't think so. Not that I know of. but I pray for his health every freaking day. so, so you know, spread the word, do what you can, and hopefully together we can inform others. I do with my students, even though it's not even part of the class, because especially in our digital citizenship classes and all this other stuff, break it down a little bit easier. But um, do what you can, okay? Just it's just a shitty time we're heading towards, and you gotta wake the hell up, and we gotta say stuff. Say it at work. Talk about it with your family. Watch more videos from like Naomi and Rob and all these people. You don't gotta buy stuff, like whatever. Just I wish you guys all the best, and don't put up with this shit. Anyway, talk to you later. Bye bye.